an airplane with Israeli citizens arrived in Russia. The tarmac was infiltrated and swarmed with what I can only describe as Arab immigrants within Russia, chanting Allah Akbar as they admitted that they were there to hunt down and kill Jews. Russia's airport police and regular police had to make arrests and get the group under control. What are your thoughts on stories like this? Is this a Hamas group within Russia or just an anti-Israel group? And are you worried about how many Arabs have been driven out of the Middle East into Europe that could wake up and suddenly make attacks on the very towns that they are now residing in?
Well, let's start with the first part of this. The story that you just recited is false.
Okay.
The Russians told me, and I contacted my Russian sources, that that plane did not have any Israelis on it. In fact, the only person that got off that anybody looked at strangely was an Uzbek. And what you had was not an Arab group by any means at all. These are simply Turkic people who live in Dagestan.
Okay.
Americans know nothing about the region as usual. And you have various different types, Dagestanis, Chechens. There are a whole range of tribes that have become nations over the years. They are Turks or Turkic, depending upon which definition you want to use. Everybody effectively between the border with Mongolia's border with Kazakhstan all the way to Turkey speaks effectively the same language. And we call those people Tatars, Turkic, any number of different things. The one exception, of course, are the Tajiks. They speak a version of Persian. In other words, indistinguishable from modern Farsi. But everybody else speaks Turkic. That means that the people living in the Caucasus and Central Asia can all read and listen to Mr. Erdogan. That's very important because Mr. Erdogan sees himself as the de facto leader of Sunni Islam and also prides himself on being the leading voice for Turkic or Turkish people and culture in the world. This is one of the reasons that the Russians have managed the 40 million or so Muslim Turks and Tartars in their country very carefully. Russia normally has no difficulty whatsoever with this. But I suspect that they've been listening to Mr. Erdogan, and they went there enraged at what is happening in Gaza, and they're not unique. And I would not confuse the rage at what the Israelis are doing in Gaza with anti-Semitism. It's in the interest of Israelis to brand everything as anti-Semitism, but there are many places in the world where Jews are completely safe, and I would include most of Central Asia in that category. No one objects to Jews, but there are lots of objections to things the Israelis do. So that's another distinction that we don't bother to make in the press. And if you turn on the mainstream, nobody keeps you informed about anything.
Yeah. Okay. So you think that that was a false, like, feeder story through Western media?
I doubt it. I think it's just that these people have been following things through Russian media as well as Turkish media. As I said, if you listen to Mr. Erdogan's speeches, they're very, very inflammatory. They're very nationalistic, but nationalistic in a way that we would regard as internationalist, because he's speaking not just to 90 million, 80, 90 million Turks in Anatolia. He's speaking to another 100 million plus in Central Asia. And we need to understand that. Mr. Putin does, and that's why he manages his relations with Mr. Erdogan very carefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know